Stop. What you're about to hear isn't new information. It's a memory your soul has been waiting to recall. You didn't just click on this video. Something deeper called you here. To remember a truth that was buried, not lost. A truth hidden under layers of inherited silence and generations of unspoken ache. This isn't about a simple concept you can study. It's about a foundational fracture in your being, a rift in the ancestral field that stretches far beyond your single life story. It is the pain of being severed from the primal source, the original field of unity and nurture from which all life first emerged, whole and held. Yet for human consciousness to awaken, a separation was necessary. We had to step from that infinite, nurturing darkness into the stark light of individual awareness. And in that necessary step, the wound was created. The true empath, you see, is someone who remembers too much of that original, undivided state. They are porous. They feel the emotions that hang in the air between people, the silent suffering in a room, the invisible currents of family history that flow beneath the surface of everyday words. The empath lives on the threshold between personal and collective feeling. They are, in a way, the unsanctioned priest or priestess of emotion, though they rarely see it as a calling. More often, they feel tormented by it, consumed by energies they can't identify, drained by pains they didn't originate, but somehow feel obligated to carry. When we speak of healing this core wound, we are not only speaking of your relationship with the person who raised you. We are speaking of something far more ancient, the transformation of the mother archetype within your own psyche. Every person carries an ancient, primordial image of the mother within. She appears in dreams as the wilderness, the mountain, the deep well, the untamed creature, or the serene guide. When this inner image is damaged, the individual can swing wildly between desperate need and fierce rebellion, between a hunger for love and a terror of being swallowed by it. For the empath, this wound is amplified. Their sensitivity is both a burden and a sacred assignment. They carry not just their own longing for that essential embrace, but the longing of those who came before them. Your deepest sensitivity is your buried assignment. This core fracture shows up as an inability to stand in your full psychic sovereignty. The child who was not fully seen or received for their true essence learns to hyper, attuned to the caregiver's moods and needs just to survive. This adaptation becomes empathy, but it's an empathy born from trauma, not wholeness. The child learns to constantly scan the emotional environment, to make themselves small, to manage the anxiety of others just to earn the right to exist. And in that process, they sever the spontaneous connection to their own inner voice. They begin to mix up love with merging and compassion with self-erasure. The empath becomes the keeper of the collective shadow. To heal is to reclaim the absolute right to your own inner life. It is to differentiate yourself from the archetypal field of the wounded mother, and to hand back every projection that was never yours to hold. This work requires a descent into the unconscious, not as a conqueror, but as a humble student, because this wound guards the entrance to the underworld of the soul, and only by going down can you retrieve the lost pieces of self you gave away in order to belong. The empath's true healing begins the moment they stop trying to save everyone else. This is the great paradox. Their entire identity is often built on being the rescuer. Yet, as long as you seek your own redemption through fixing another, you remain chained to the archetype of the sacrificial child, the one who must suffer to keep the peace. The empath must turn inward and face the terrifying loneliness of being separate from the source. In that void, they meet the devouring aspect of the archetype Kali, Lilith, the dark mother who destroys illusion. It is she who burns away the false empathy, that was rooted in fear, that fragile caretaking born from the terror of abandonment. And in her fierce fire, something new is forged, true compassion, which arises not from merging, but from grounded, sovereign presence. When the empath begins to differentiate, their relationships shift, often instantly. This doesn't mean other people change. It means the empath stops participating in the unconscious dance of projection. What was tangled becomes clear. Resentment softens into understanding. Exhaustion is replaced by a new, resilient energy. The empath learns, often for the first time, that love does not require suffering, that empathy without boundaries is not holiness, it's a cage. The transformation happens because the invisible psychic contract has been rewritten. You no longer carry what does not belong to you. This process, however, is not painless. To withdraw your projections is to face the inner emptiness that was once filled by the old, familiar image. The empath must endure the alchemical nigredo, the dark night where everything familiar dissolves. This is a sacred disintegration. It is only through the death of the false self that the true self can emerge. In that profound darkness, the archetype itself transforms from the personal, painful mother into the great mother, no longer a source of hurt, but of deep mystery and unshakable wisdom. The empath, once a child drowning in the emotions of others, becomes the healer who stands at the threshold between worlds. When the empath heals, their very presence becomes a form of medicine, not because they are trying to heal anyone, but because they have become whole. Others can feel it. It's the integrity of someone who no longer plays the unconscious roles of savior or victim. This is an energetic fact. The psyche recognizes wholeness as safety. Relationships naturally reorganize around this new vibration. Those who depended on your unconscious caretaking may fall away. Others, who are ready to meet at the level of soul, will be drawn near. This isn't manipulation, it is resonance. The field of the healed empath is no longer porous and draining, but luminous, a clear vessel. In its deepest essence, this core wound is an initiation into the mystery of creation itself. Every act of true creation is born from the tension between separation and unity. The empath's task is not to dissolve that tension, but to hold it, to live in the paradox of being deeply connected yet fully autonomous. This capacity, which Jung called individuation, is the mark of true psychic maturity. Individuation is not isolation. It is the profound realization that the divine source and the sovereign self coexist within you. When the empath integrates this truth, they stop seeking externally for what they already are internally. There is a powerful dream. A person stands before a vast, stormy sea, weeping for a mother they feel they have lost. The waves rise and crash, and from the foam, an immense feminine presence emerges, both radiant and formidable. Why do you seek me in a single form? The ocean asks. I was never absent. You are the child who must become the ocean. This dream captures the heart of the empath's healing. The source is not to be found in another person, but within the depths of your own vast unconscious. The empath who becomes the ocean no longer fears drowning, for they have learned to breathe in the waters of their own soul. We must remember that the mother archetype holds both light and shadow. She nurtures, but she also consumes. To heal does not mean to banish the shadow, but to integrate it. The empath who has long feared the devouring aspect must recognize that same energy lives within them. Their tendency to absorb others' pain is the internalization of that devouring principle, an attempt to control suffering by swallowing it whole. But when this energy is made conscious, it transforms into fierce wisdom. The devouring mother becomes the unwavering guardian of your boundaries. Her power to destroy illusion becomes the power to protect your spirit. Many resist this transformation, for it demands the death of a certain kind of innocence. The empath must let go of the identity of the good child, the one who saved the family system through their endless sensitivity. Yet only through this symbolic death can the adult, sovereign self be born. Jung wrote that the greatest burden a child must bear is the unlived life of the parents. To heal is to return the burden to its origin. To say, with absolute love, this is yours to carry. I return it to you. Such words are an act of profound psychic liberation. They break the ancestral chain that binds you to generational pain. You see, when one person truly heals this wound, the entire lineage feels the shift. The unconscious does not recognize the boundaries of time. The empath becomes the vessel through which ancestors find release. For the psyche is holographic. The healing of one part resonates through the whole field. This is why relationships can transform so suddenly. It's not magic, it's psychology operating at the level of the soul. Your liberation rearranges the entire web of projections and attachments that had kept the old family system in a fragile balance. The system must adjust, and it does so through the law of psychic compensation. This is why an empath's healing often provokes resistance. Others sense unconsciously that the old order is crumbling. Yet those who are ready will rise to meet you in this new field of authenticity. Then, relationship becomes not an exchange of unmet needs, but a dialogue between two souls, each aware of their own wholeness. It is in this meeting that love reveals its true nature, not as dependency or fusion, but as conscious participation in the great mystery of being. Therefore, my friends, this healing is not a sentimental journey. It is an initiation into the deepest strata of human experience. It is the descent into the realm of the Great Mother, the confrontation with the devouring darkness, and the emergence as the sovereign self. The empath's gift, once twisted by suffering, becomes the very light that illuminates the collective shadow. Through their healing, the archetype itself evolves, for humanity is the instrument through which the divine transforms. When you stand before this ancient wound, you feel a tremor of something primordial stirring in your blood. It is not only personal grief. It is the collective grief of the feminine, buried under ages of silence, denied its sacred voice. To touch this wound is to awaken the serpent coiled at the root of your psyche. The kundalini of remembrance that rises not to destroy, but to restore the sacred balance between spirit and matter. The empath, in their profound sensitivity, becomes the vessel for this resurrection. Yet they must learn the critical art of discernment, knowing what is theirs and what belongs to the ages. Too often, I see souls who mistake their compassion for a supreme virtue, when in truth it is bondage dressed up as love. They carry the burdens of others as if it were their own karma, and they call it empathy. But empathy that denies discernment is not light. It is shadow wearing the costume of holiness. It is the ego's attempt to remain indispensable, to preserve the illusion of being the good one. Healing begins when you recognize that even compassion must submit to the laws of individuation. For true compassion arises only from the integrated self, never from the ego that seeks to redeem the world in order to justify its own pain. In the ancient myths, every hero must descend into the underworld to retrieve what was lost. Inanna for her sister, Christ for the imprisoned souls. So too must the empath descend into their own unconscious, not to rescue another, but to retrieve the soul fragments they abandoned when they first took responsibility for a parent's pain. This descent is not a metaphor. It is a lived reality marked by powerful dreams, bodily sensations, and periods of profound disorientation. The soul resists awakening, for consciousness brings both suffering and ultimate freedom. When I speak of the empath's descent, I speak of the alchemical process where projection is withdrawn and inner opposites are reconciled. In alchemy, the first stage is the nigridu, the blackening. It is the moment when all that once gave your life meaning dissolves. The empath, once identified as the healer, the savior, the caretaker, finds these roles now empty. They experience void, despair, and deep confusion. Yet this darkness is the womb of rebirth. You must endure the chaos without reaching for a quick, easy fix. The ego's task is to suffer consciously, to remain present as the structures of illusion collapse. For in the psychic alchemy of transformation, suffering is not punishment, it is purification. The core wound, when illuminated, reveals its secret. The empath's capacity to feel so deeply is the raw material for spiritual transmutation. The very sensitivity that once enslaved them becomes the organ of intuitive knowing, the bridge between conscious and unconscious. But first, it must be purified of all sentimentality and misplaced projection. The empath must allow their emotions to burn in the crucible of awareness until all that remains is essence, feeling without attachment, compassion without identification. There is a pivotal moment in this process, the enantiodromia, where one thing turns into its opposite. The empath who has lived by absorbing others' pain suddenly begins to feel anger, resentment, even pure rage. This is the repressed vitality of the shadow, finally emerging from exile. Many fear it, for they've been taught that to feel anger is to become the devouring force they once feared. Yet this anger is sacred. It is the fire that melts the chains of codependency. To feel your rage without acting it out destructively is to reclaim the instinctual power you sacrificed to keep the peace. The empath who learns to hold their fire becomes an alchemist of the soul. The alchemical symbol of the Konniencho, the sacred marriage, occurs when opposites unite, light and dark, masculine and feminine, spirit and matter. Psychologically, this is the integration of the anima and animus, the reconciliation of the inner mother and inner father. For the empath, this means they stop seeking externally for the balance they lack within. They cease looking for partners to complete them or projecting the maternal archetype onto lovers and friends. Relationships then shift from dependency to true dialogue. The other becomes not a savior or a victim, but a mirror, a living symbol through which the self can perceive itself. I recall someone of extraordinary sensitivity who could feel the emotions of everyone in the room. She was perpetually exhausted, unable to tell where she ended and others began. In her dreams, she was forever carrying wounded creatures. One night, she dreamt a lioness was devouring her. She was terrified. I told her, "This lioness is your own stifled strength. She devours the false you so the true one can emerge." Months later, she dreamt of the same lioness lying peacefully beside her, purring. The energy that once consumed her had become her most powerful ally. This is the essence of psychological alchemy, the transmutation of what devours into what nourishes, of shadow into integrated light. Yet you cannot perform this alchemy by willpower alone. It unfolds through a deep surrender to the unconscious, to dreams, to meaningful coincidences, to the symbols that arise spontaneously from your depths. The empath's path is not a straight line. It moves in spirals through cycles of death and rebirth. Each descent reveals a deeper layer. Each ascent brings greater consciousness. It is a rhythm, like breathing, the inhale of individuation, the exhale of connection. Many ask when the empath heals, why do relationships change so suddenly? The answer lives in the invisible field that connects us. We are not isolated islands. We exist within a collective psyche, woven together by unconscious patterns. When one person withdraws their projections, the energy that sustained the old pattern dissolves. The entire relational field must then reorganize itself around the new level of consciousness. This is why it seems instantaneous, not because others have changed, but because the psychic architecture that maintained the illusion has collapsed. In the language of alchemy, this is the moment of albedo, the whitening, the dawning of the inner sun. The empath, having endured the darkness, now radiates from their core. They no longer absorb, they emanate. The light that once shone outward, trying to fix others, now burns inward, illuminating the chambers of their own soul. This light is not the ego's brightness, but the quiet, unwavering presence of the self. It seeks no validation, it simply is. At this stage, love itself is transformed. The empath no longer loves to be loved, nor gives to be seen as good. They love because love is their nature. They can perceive the divine spark, even in those who wounded them, for they understand that all encounters are instruments of individuation. Every betrayal, every disappointment was a mirror held up by the self, asking, "Do you see it? Do you see who you truly are?" And when the empath finally answers, yes, the cycle completes, they become free, not by escaping relationship, but by seeing every connection as the psyche's dance toward wholeness. In mythic terms, the empath becomes the magician, the one who holds both the chalice of compassion and the sword of discernment. They can enter another's emotional field without losing their own center. Their empathy becomes creative participation, not emotional contagion. They heal through presence, not sacrifice. Their relationships, once fraught with unconscious rows, become living alchemical vessels where both souls are refined. Do not imagine this as a permanent state of bliss. The psyche moves in eternal cycles. Integration is followed by new challenges, illumination by new shadows. The empath's task is not to reach a static perfection, but to remain in lifelong dialogue with the unconscious. To live symbolically is to accept that life is the self unfolding through opposites. Each relationship, each conflict, each moment of solitude is an opportunity for deeper union. The empath who understands this ceases to fear pain, for they know that within every pain lies the seed of a revelation. The collective implications are immense. We live in an age of emotional numbness and spiritual hunger. The world is filled with unhealed core wounds, nations devouring their young, humanity estranged from nature, the feminine principle degraded. When the empath heals, they restore balance not only within themselves, but within the collective unconscious. They become carriers of the renewed feminine, the Sophia who unites deep wisdom with compassionate action. Through them, the mother archetype is redeemed, not as a sentimental figure, but as the cosmic principle of sacred relatedness that holds all of creation together. Thus, healing this wound is not merely a personal act. It is a sacred service to the evolution of consciousness itself. Each empath who awakens reweaves a single thread in the tapestry of the world's soul. Through their inner work, the anima mundi moves closer to wholeness. This is how relationships transform instantly. For in the deepest truth, there are no isolated others. There is one vast psyche, dreaming itself into countless forms. To heal your relationship with the mother within is to heal the relationship between humanity and the divine. The moment you emerge from the depths of this initiation, a new dimension of consciousness unfolds. What was once personal suffering now reveals itself as your participation in the eternal rhythm of the cosmos. Reborn from the dark waters, you become a living bridge. This is no metaphor, but a tangible transformation of your psychic field. For in healing the mother, you reclaim the archetypal bond with life itself, and life responds. I have often said the unconscious is not a dusty storage room of old memories, but a living ocean whose tides shape every shore of your conscious mind. When the empath learns to navigate these waters, they no longer drown. They move with the currents, guided by symbols rising like constellations from the deep. Each dream becomes a message from the Great Mother herself, whispering, "Remember, you are both the single wave and the entire sea." To live from this awareness is to live mythically. Your personal story becomes one with the eternal story of creation and return. The Great Mother, once feared as the devourer, now reveals her other face, the Aneatrix. She calls the empath not just to heal, but to embody the sacred wisdom that arises from integration. This is the stage the ancients called rubedo, the reddening, the completion of the alchemical work. The empath, once shattered by love, now becomes love itself. They radiate an energy that awakens others not through words, but through vibration. Yet this radiance must be lived with humility, for the ego always tempts us to claim the numinous as its own achievement. True transformation is silent. It needs no announcement. Here, many empaths feel a call to teach or guide. But the wise know their work is not to save, but to awaken. Healing, in the deepest sense, is never about fixing others, but about bringing unconscious material into the light of awareness. The empath, through their own descent, has learned the language of symbols. They recognize in another's suffering the echoes of a collective story. They know that beneath every conflict lies an archetypal pattern seeking integration. Thus, their presence becomes a mirror in which others can glimpse their own soul. But let us be clear, the healed empath does not escape suffering. They may feel more deeply than ever. But now they are not possessed by feeling. They allow sorrow to move through them like wind through trees. They have discovered the paradox that one can suffer without being broken. This is the wisdom of the wounded healer, the Charan archetype. The empath, like Chiron, learns their wound is not a flaw, but a portal. Through it, the divine enters the human realm. The healed empath carries the knowing that to be whole is not to be unbroken, but to be conscious of your fractures and to hold them in unconditional love. In the ancient mysteries, initiates learned that descent and ascent are one movement, seen from different sides. The empath's healing follows this same law. The descent into the wound, the confrontation with shadow, the death of the false self, all are necessary for the ascent into wisdom. When you return from that underworld, you carry a light of insight, as Inanna emerged crowned with the knowledge of life and death. This return marks the birth of the inner alchemist, who knows any experience can be transmuted into gold if met with unwavering awareness. Relationships after this take on a new quality. The empath seeks communion, not completion. They understand each encounter is a chance for mutual revelation. They no longer fear true intimacy, for they have made peace with the inner mother, and thus no longer project her shadow onto others. The lover, the friend, the child, all are seen as expressions of the same archetypal dance of giving and receiving. The empath's boundaries become fluid yet firm, like a shoreline that welcomes the tide, but does not vanish within it. This balance between openness and containment is the signature of mature empathy. Consider how the collective mirrors the individual. Humanity's estrangement from the natural world is the macrocosm of the mother wound. We have exploited the earth, consumed her resources, denied her sacredness, because we have not reconciled with the archetypal mother within. The empath, through personal healing, becomes an instrument of this global reconciliation. They feel the planet's pain as intimate kinship, not abstract guilt. Yet they do not collapse under its weight. They act from clarity, knowing that true ecological healing begins in the soul's relationship with the Great Mother. To heal the psyche is to heal the world, for psyche and cosmos are one unbroken continuum. I remember a dream from my own depths. I stood before a colossal tree, roots in black water, branches in stars. A voice said, "This is the mother of all things. She feeds upon herself and gives birth from herself. You are her child, and also her witness." I awoke understanding the tree is the symbol of individuation, rooted in the unconscious, crowned in consciousness, nourished by the endless circulation between above and below. The empath's healing is to become that living tree, to allow both shadow and light to feed the soul, to be rooted in earth and open to heaven simultaneously. The healed empath perceives that all wounds are variations of one core wound, the felt separation from source. Yet this separation is necessary, for consciousness can only exist where there is a degree of distance. The purpose of the wound, therefore, is not to be erased, but to be made sacred. When you accept this paradox, suffering ceases to be meaningless. It becomes the very means through which the divine experiences itself in human form. This is why relationships transform after healing. You no longer approach others from a place of lack, but from overflowing fullness. You no longer seek the lost mother in a partner's eyes. You see her everywhere, in the rain, in the silence between heartbeats, in the pulse of your own being. Such awareness brings both profound joy and a certain solitude. For to see with the eyes of the self is to stand where joy and sorrow are woven from the same thread. The healed empath becomes a contemplative, even in life's bustle. They find meaning not in external validation, but in the unfolding of inner symbols. Every event becomes a message. Every conflict, a dialogue between archetypes. They live what I call the symbolic life, where the outer world is recognized as a perfect mirror of the inner. This is the true mysticism for our time, not an escape from the world, but a conscious, deep participation in its psychic depths. You may ask, how does one sustain this amidst daily turbulence? The answer is ritual, not superstition, but conscious, daily acts that anchor the psyche in meaning. The empath must create simple forms that remind them of their connection to the source, through art, through nature, through intentional silence. The unconscious speaks in images. To feed your soul, you must speak its native language. The empath who neglects this becomes vulnerable again to the collective shadow, for the unconscious, when ignored, returns as fate. Let us not forget the world itself is in a process of collective individuation. What we see as chaos, the breakdown of old systems, polarized values, crisis of ecology and meaning, are symptoms of a great psychic reorganization. The mother archetype, suppressed for so long, is rising from the collective depths, demanding recognition. Those who carry the empathic function are among her first heralds. They feel the contractions of the world's soul as birth pangs. Their task is not to despair, but to hold consciousness steady within the storm. To remember that every apocalypse contains an awakening. The word apocalypse means on unveiling. The end of one order is the revelation of another. Therefore, the empath's healing is not a private luxury. It is a preparation for essential service. To be healed is to make yourself available to the divine work of integration that humanity must now undertake. You become a psychopomp, a guide between worlds, helping others navigate their own descent. But unlike before, you do not absorb, you illuminate. You do not lead with authority, but with authenticity. Your presence invites others to encounter their own depths. This is the quiet revolution of consciousness, the alchemy that begins within one heart and radiates outward without end. And so I tell you, when you heal this core wound, it is not only your relationships that transform. The very fabric of your reality shifts, because the psyche and the cosmos mirror one another flawlessly. You become a microcosm of the great work, the eternal process by which the one becomes the many. and the many consciously return to the one. Each act of awareness, each moment of compassion rooted in truth, contributes to this cosmic unfolding. The mother, once wounded, now sings through your healed heart, and her song is the music of universal renewal. There comes a point in the inner journey where the soul, having moved through the night and the fire, begins to perceive itself not as the seeker, but as that which was sought all along. The empath who once lived as a mirror discovers they are the source of the light being reflected. The wound dissolves not because it's forgotten, but because it has been utterly transfigured. What was pain becomes the sacred scar, the mark of a complete initiation. In this final phase, you enter into union with the creative principle itself. Love ceases to be a passing emotion and becomes your state of being. This is the mystery of the sacred marriage, the hieros gamos, the union of divine feminine and masculine within your soul. The empath, long over-identified with the receptive, lunar principle, must now awaken the solar current, the capacity to illuminate, to act, to create from clarity. Only when these two currents are reconciled does the psyche become whole. The lunar compassion of the mother and the solar clarity of the father intertwine. From their union, the true self is born, the philosopher's stone, the symbol of achieved wholeness. This inner union is not abstract. It shows in how you love, work, speak, and dream. When you integrate your inner masculine, you no longer drift in others' emotional currents. You learn to steer the vessel of your soul with purpose. Action arises from alignment, not compulsion. Words are spoken to reveal truth, not to placate. Creativity flows as participation in cosmic becoming, not as escape. You cease to be only a conduit and become a conscious co-creator. Here, many experience a profound stillness. The inner storm gives way to a quiet ocean. Yet beneath the calm is immense vitality, the energy of the self flowing freely. Once burdened by empathy, you now radiate equanimity. You don't need to protect your energy, because your energy has become transparent. Nothing sticks, for there is no separate self left to defend. This is not cold indifference, but the transcendence of egoed identification. To feel everything, yet be possessed by nothing, that is mastery. In this wholeness, relationship exists to celebrate, not to complete. You meet others as equals in the great mystery. There is no hierarchy, no dependence, no unconscious contract of shared suffering. The dance of projection has ended. In its place is the pure communion of souls aware of their own inherent divinity. Love, freed from archetypal distortion, becomes the radiance of being, an energy that blesses all it touches, asking for nothing in return. This is the ultimate reason relationships transform, because love, once bound by fear, has become consciousness itself. Contemplate the heart's symbolism. In ancient traditions, the heart was the seat of the divine spark, a fragment of the gods, placed within us so we would always yearn to return. The empath's journey is the awakening of that spark. Your suffering was the fire that purified the heart, your compassion, the water that cooled it. Now, the heart becomes the alchemist's furnace, where spirit and matter unite in the eternal act of love. The healed empath sees that all relationships are reflections of the soul's relationship with the divine. Every person loved or lost, every betrayal and reconciliation was a chapter in the dialogue between the human and the eternal. Seeing this, forgiveness arises effortlessly. For what is there to forgive when every wound was an initiation, every loss a step toward remembrance? The mother who wounded was herself wounded. The father who abandoned was himself lost. In this awareness, compassion becomes comprehension. You see through separation to the great web of interbeing, woven from threads of joy and sorrow alike. This realization doesn't pull you from the world. It plunges you deeper into it. fully individuated. You understand the world is the divine's living body. Every kind act, every creative impulse, every moment of true presence fuels the evolution of consciousness. To live authentically is to serve the great work, not through grand deeds, but through the quiet alignment of your daily being. The healed empath becomes a vessel of agape, not romantic passion, but the universal principle of connection. Through you, the world remembers its own unity. You'll notice such people carry a peculiar radiance. They move with a gentle strength. They can look into your eyes and see not your persona or your wound, but your soul longing for itself. Their presence dissolves pretense, for authenticity is contagious. This is the living embodiment of the self, the totality embracing conscious and unconscious, human and divine. Once fragmented by identifying with suffering, you now become an instrument of integration. You no longer interpret life through the lens of trauma, but through the rhythm of inherent meaning. For such a soul, even solitude becomes sacred. You understand that being alone is not the absence of love, but its deepest form, communion with the self. From this fulfilled solitude, you engage the world not from need, but from overflow. Your creativity becomes prayer. Your relationships become temples. You no longer ask life, what can I get? What divine quality can I express through this moment? In this shift, you fulfill your true purpose, to be a living bridge between heaven and earth, through the alchemy of deep feeling and clear awareness. The task of the modern human is to rediscover the sacred within the ordinary. The empath, having navigated the labyrinth of the core wound, becomes the guardian of this rediscovery. They sense the sacred pulse in a simple gesture, the breath of the eternal in a fleeting encounter. They know the divine lives not only in temples, but in laughter, in sorrow, in the silence that holds both. The mother they once sought is now present as the living field of relatedness that sustains all things. The world has become her body, and through your awakened awareness, she is made conscious of herself. Now you may ask, what is the purpose of empathy once it is healed? It becomes revelation, not reaction. True empathy is the intuitive perception of unity behind apparent diversity. It is recognizing that what suffers in another is the same essence awakening in you. The healed empath doesn't rescue, they witness. They don't absorb pain, they illuminate it. In their presence, others remember who they are, because the empath embodies that remembrance. This is how transformation ripples out, not by effort, but by resonance. The healed heart becomes a tuning fork for consciousness, attuning the world to its forgotten harmony. And yet, humility must prevail. As long as you live, the work of integration continues. The unconscious is infinite, the self is ever unfolding. You must remain a lifelong student of the soul, knowing that enlightenment is not a destination, but a rhythm, a continual dance between forgetting and remembering. Walk with reverence. Know that every person you meet may be another face of the divine, another messenger of the Great Mother in disguise. This attitude of sacred curiosity keeps the soul supple and the heart open. When you reach this point, you become, in the truest sense, a creator of reality, not through forceful manifestation, but through alignment with the archetypal flow of life. Your thoughts, feelings, and actions are no longer fragmented reactions, but coherent expressions of a single field of consciousness. You participate consciously in the opus, the process of becoming divine through awareness. Each kind act, each insight, each surrender to truth adds light to the collective psyche. The world responds to you differently because you have ceased to oppose it. You have become one with its unfolding. And so, my friends, when I say relationships transform instantly or heal, I speak of natural law. The psyche, once fractured, reorganizes itself according to harmony. Chaos becomes cosmos. The inner sacred marriage radiates outward as harmony in human connection. You no longer meet the world as an orphan, but as a conscious creator. The mother, once a source of wounding, now lives within you as wisdom, as power, as a love that embraces both life and death. The circle is complete. At its center stands the self, radiant, silent, and whole. This is not an end. It is the beginning of a new journey. Conscious participation in the evolution of the world soul. Reborn through pain into unwavering presence, you become a midwife for the new consciousness emerging in our time. Each healed heart adds to the resonance of global awakening. Each act of awareness nourishes the Great Mother as she dreams a new world into being through you. So if you feel that stirring in your depths, that ancient tangled pulse of love and sorrow, do not turn away. Enter it. Descend as the empath must descend. For within that wound lies the secret of your creation. And within that secret, the memory of who you have always been. When you emerge, you will find nothing outside has changed, yet everything is different, for you will see with the eyes of the mother, eyes that love without fear, that see without judgment, that create without end. And that, my friends, is how the empath, in healing the core wound, becomes not merely whole, but divine. If this resonated with you, please like this video. It helps the channel wake and reach others who need to hear this message.